Hey, this is Glenn. No, the Glenn. But listen, before you get all worked up talking to me, I'm on my way to High Tech in Minneapolis, and I need to know where to send my rider. It's only 46 pages. Shouldn't be that hard to fill. Hello?
Do you live, eat, and sleep the hotel industry? Looking to brush up on your game? You've come to the right place. Welcome to No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast, with your host, Glenn Hausman.
Hey there, hi there, ho there. Glenn Hausman here of the No Vacancy podcast. So excited to have you along with me on this journey. All right, so you probably already said to yourself, Glenn, why do you sound like that? I'm having an insane allergy attack right now. I cannot breathe. I cannot function. It is really very stressful for me over here today. But what is not stressful is that you all out there should make Almo Hospitality your go-to partner to simplify FF&E deployments for the guest room and beyond with industry-leading brands, the latest hospitality trends and distinctive new-to-market brands coupled with their specialized business development and hospitality-dedicated sales team. Almo Hospitality is a division of Almo Corporation, the nation's largest independent distributor of professional AV, consumer electronics, major appliances, outdoor furniture, housewares, and more. You can find them at hospitality.almoproav.com. So I want to thank you guys for being here again with me today and putting up with my patient. I'm trying to get back on the train today because we got a couple of great interviews. So instead of you having to listen a really long time to me and my nasally drone over here today, what I thought I'd do today is bundle a couple of great interviews that we had from the NYU Hospitality Investment Conference. To lead us off is Lou Plasencia. You probably know Lou if you're out there in the financial markets. If not, you're going to really love hearing what he has to say. They do a lot of great advisement. We're going to take you through that whole process. And then we're going to hear from Sean Hehir of Trinity Investments, talking all about the great investments they've been making. They've been acquiring a lot of full service and luxury hotels right now, in particular the Grand Lakes Orlando Resort, and it should be pretty great conversation for you all to listen to, all about the financial side of our business and how these folks are leveraging opportunities right now. So I'm really psyched about that. So going to take you right away to these interviews, and I'm going to go try to take myself some allergy medicine and lie down. Thanks for listening. Oh, yeah, I should say, if you're not a subscriber yet, go on to iTunes. Go on to iTunes. iTunes is theoretically gone now. So go on to Apple Podcasts, my friends. Apple Podcasts out there, and subscribe to our show, or feel free to get it on Google Play or Stitcher or everywhere else finer podcasts are found. That's right, we're where you want to be. And if you're too lazy to do all that, just text the word hotel to 66866, 66866. That's the word hotel to 66866, and we'll get you our Sunday night newsletter each and every week featuring this show, the Hotel Design Podcast, Checking In with Anthony and Glenn, the Business of Hotels Podcast, the Hotel Tech Podcast, and all of the great videos that we're doing that you might not have seen up on Facebook or LinkedIn. And be sure to check us out at novacancynews.com. So, okay, let's get to our two interviews recorded a couple of weeks ago at a NYU Hospitality Investment Conference. Coming up, Lou Plasencia and then Trinity Investments. Thanks for listening. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the No Vacancy Podcast with me, your host, Glenn Hausman, or at least I think that's who I am. I've been doing so many interviews today while I'm at the NYU Hospitality Investment Conference. It's been it's kind of cuckoo crazy. I don't even know when you guys are going to be listening to this interview. For all I know, it could be March of 2020. It won't really be. It'll definitely be this summer. But I got with me Mr. Lou Plasencia, Chief Executive Officer of the Plasencia Group. Lou, how are you?
Good morning.
It is so good to see you.
Good to see you again.
So, I've known you, longer than I'd like to admit,
Glenn,
probably.
20.
Yeah, exactly. Something.
Years.
Yeah. something like that. I've always admired what you do, and I think because we have a lot of folks that listen to this show that aren't inculcated into the whole financial universe that we all go on. We're on the same tour, right? Where we go to all the same events all of the time. Maybe just share real quick about who you guys are and what it is that you do.
Sure, happy to. We started out primarily in the investment advisory arena as an intermediary, and over the course of the last 3 decades that we've been around, it's changed, and that we've expanded into other services. We'll provide debt and equity placement. We'll provide asset management services, more recently, we've really expanded our development management services. There's a lot of new construction going on. Our focus really is on the upper upscale and luxury segments. It's really where we can add the most value. So we've really continued to expand that.
So what does add the most value mean to you?
Assisting an owner, in particular owners who are entering the lodging sector for the first time.
Right.
Or who do not have direct hands-on construction or operations experience.
Interesting.
In designing the most efficient operation.
Okay, so let me poke around on this a little bit, because just before we turned on the mics, I said, hey, what's one thing that you want to discuss? And we were talking about the whole notion of a lot new investors coming in, high net worth individuals, as opposed to the general, funds that we see and institutional money that we see right there. I'd like to start off the conversation by saying, what is it that is out there in the economy that is having those folks get interested in the hospitality business? And then we'll get more into that other stuff that you were kind of alluding to before.
I can sum it up in one word, and that's yield.
Yeah.
Private investors, high net worth investors, family offices are finding that they're getting better returns from hotel properties than they are from other investments, be they stocks or bonds or hard assets like other forms of real estate. Multifamily, office, where cap rates are in the very low single digits. In the lodging sector, you could still pick up properties and get high single digits.
Yeah, well, it's great. 9, well, it's great for you, Lou, that all these people are coming in and utilizing your services. What does that mean for the overall state of investment in the hospitality industry? Because previously, now I know in 2019, it's a new normal type of a situation. Not the bad new normal, a good new normal. I don't think that we're going to have any blah 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 black swan events. We're not going to have any real super downturn. I think because we've had systemic changes in society that are making us more travel all the time. But it used to be when all those outside investors came into the business, it meant that the great days of hospitality profitability were quickly coming to an end. I have a feeling it's not quite that way.
Not the case right
so how do you see it, and what are you doing exactly for these high net worth individuals? How do they come to you? How do they get engaged in the hospitality industry? What is it that they want to do, and how does the reality of the hospitality business change from what their perceptions are of it?
A great question. They're coming to us primarily through word of mouth, dealing with other like-minded owners and investors. Sometimes they partner together in transactions. What they're seeking, as I said, is yield. They're also looking for properties or investments that are fun to own. You can only get so much joy out of owning Uber stock or owning Microsoft
I don't think you're getting
stock.
Any joy.
Right now, you're not getting diddly. Agreed. Yeah. But when you and you only get so much joy out of owning an office building or a medical office building or an industrial warehouse. But when you own,
it's more of like a mechanism as opposed to a way for you to experience a lifestyle and a passion.
Well, that's exactly right.
Yeah,
that's exactly right. And they can get involved in a design of their hotels and adding different components to it, designing it the way that they want to design. So it's a fun type investment in business for them.
Well, now you say designing the way that they want to design, but ultimately, I don't think it really winds up that way. Now I'm just spitballing.
No, they're adding they're tweaking it. They're adding their touches.
Right, because
touches.
they don't have the depth of experience that someone like you, that's been in the business for decades, has. So something that might seem like a great idea to somebody who's putting their money in the first time might be the worst idea that you ever heard of. They just haven't gone through the pain of learning that lesson.
No, we have an investor who wanted to put a fine dining white tablecloth French cuisine restaurant in his hotel. And the first thing out of our mind was, really?
Right.
Why would you want to do that?
So he can entertain his friends?
One or two of them.
Right, yeah.
Because the others are going to want to have, pizza and craft beer somewhere. So that's, we finally convinced him to change the program, change the design.
Right. So when you deal with an outside investor, then they probably don't want to go for your typical select service hotel, which seems to be more, I think, for the nuts and bolts hotel owner. I have a feeling when you're talking about these outside investors, and based on what you just told me, they want to have a little bit more sizzle. So we're probably talking boutique hotels. We're probably talking full service hotels.
For the most part, the high net worth family office investors, yes, they're looking for the larger full service luxury beachfront resort type properties, boutique properties. There are, however, a number of investors that are very well off. They're well heeled, and these may be doctors, they may be cardiologists, they may be attorneys. There's a gentleman who owns a chemical company who wants to get into something different, diversification. So they are looking for other places to put their money beyond their current businesses. And we are transacting assets to those individuals as well. They're not the $100 million deals or the $200 million deals. They're more the $20, $25 million deals. And they are looking for yield. They're looking for some place where they can get 8, 9, 10% return on their investment. The dynamic that's changing for the financial side of the industry, for advisors, for brokers, for lenders, is that these people are putting up more equity,
right?
Therefore taking on less debt, number one. Number two, they're holding significantly longer. They are holding for 15, 20, 30 years rather than 5 or 7 years.
Because it's more of a lifestyle play, which I'll say, as opposed to ego play, which I may have said
exactly
at one day,
right?
right?
Or trophy, yeah, that's exactly right. They're also making enhancements to their properties that are typically above and beyond what the brand might require somebody to do. So there are different idiosyncrasies, different philosophies that these folks are bringing into the
How
game.
much education do you have to supply? Because I have a feeling like they may think that they know more than they do. And again, it's a situation of trying to educate them so you steer them to make the right decisions.
We try not to in any way quash their creativity.
Of course.
But where we try to assist them is in delivering a project that is efficient, that's functional, that one area of the hotel works with the other. We had a situation recently where this ultra high net worth individual had a very fine architectural firm design a beautiful hotel. They hadn't designed any hotels before.
Right, so they inadvertently left out a lot of things that
inadvertently,
more seasoned
the kitchen, the main kitchen for the hotel had the absolute best views of the waterfront.
Oh my gosh.
Of anywhere else. So we said, gee, don't you think you should maybe move the kitchen to the interior of the space and make that revenue generating areas? They hadn't thought about it.
No, I mean, I'm just thinking that maybe they were a residential thing and you would want to have great views when you're in the kitchen.
Well, I'm sure the chef and his staff had, they were thrilled with the views they were getting, but meanwhile the guest was staring at a blank wall.
Right.
So they're listening, they're learning. We're trying to save them money by ordering certain FF&E product as opposed to customizing, designing everything.
Right.
We're trying to create more revenue generating spaces as opposed to just lounging spaces. We want to introduce different food and beverage concepts. We want to introduce more event spaces. Those are the things that we try to focus on the development side.
Fascinating. And you say you sometimes work with brands. Are people also doing just independent type properties, or do these net worth individuals feel like being associated with a brand will make their jobs or profitability more likely?
Glenn, it depends on the asset, depends on the location, it depends on the need.
Yeah. There's always those depends things.
Well, no, I mean, we've got a situation where we've got an owner who's developing a hotel in a top 25 market, but given where the hotel is situated physically in that location, we think that affiliating with a brand would benefit them because it's a heavy convention market. They hadn't contemplated doing a brand. So we are, in fact, today here at this conference, we've had conversations with 2 brands thus far for that particular hotel.
That's great.
But they don't really think in those terms. Those owners don't really, they want boutique-y, they want to create an experiential place where people can have different different experiences.
Yeah, they want to build something that they are proud of and makes them money,
Correct.
which gets back
Correct.
to being a part of the lifestyle that they hope to be a part of, right?
Yep.
So
No, that's exactly it.
That's fascinating. What else are you seeing overall in your universe? What are the biggest issues on either the positive or challenge side that you're thinking about lately?
On the positive side, we are seeing an inordinate amount of capital hit the marketplace,
Right.
and it's primarily foreign capital. It's coming from private individuals taking their money out of Venezuela or
Right.
out of Argentina. It's also coming from institutional investors like the retirement fund of the government of Norway. They're investing in the U.S.
Fascinating.
It's one key element that drives people to the U.S., and that is the rule of law, compared to a lot of other countries in Latin America
Right.
and Europe, and especially the Middle East. There's not
more
necessarily
dependability here.
and certainty and confidence, and people appreciate that we got out of the last mess that we were in 2009, 2010, in a very regimented way.
So what the downside of the upside is, with so much capital coming into the market, it could artificially inflate valuations of properties that you're looking to buy.
Yeah.
Is that something that you think about? And how do you recommend approaching deals to avoid the trap of overpaying?
Well, I want to come back to
Yes,
the
please.
previous question. What's the upside and what's the downside?
Yeah.
The upside is we're seeing a huge amount of capital influx. The downside is that there is very little product for those folks to buy. So it is artificially enhancing or increasing,
Right.
dropping cap rates, increasing values. No ifs, ands, or buts. We're seeing property pricing at pretty much all-time highs. The more state investors, the more institutional investors, be it a REIT or a life company or some of the PE firms, are not investing as aggressively, as quickly as they have in past cycles,
Right.
because of where pricing is on a lot of assets.
Right.
That said, the conversations that we're having with owners of assets, and it's primarily private equity and REIT owners, there is a dire need to start recycling their capital. So our expectation is that there will be an increase in lodging transactions in the second half of this year, first half of next year.
Excellent. And will those be at the same all-time high valuations, do you think, come into market?
I think the volume of assets that will hit the market, and that has already begun to hit the market,
Cool.
Will serve to, I don't want to say depress prices, but I will say moderate pricing.
Right.
So we are starting to see some of that already happening. Some of the larger REITs, for example, Host Hotels or Park Hotels, they have a number of properties on the market right now. The private equity firms are starting to loosen up some of their assets. I think you'll see more of that in the second half of this year, first half of next.
So how do you go about finding the deals to bring to these individuals, assuming they want to buy something as opposed to build from scratch?
We don't pitch a lot of deals. We don't. It typically those deals typically come to us because of relationships that we've had
Right.
for 25, 30 years, and it's these are business relationships, but they're also friendships.
Right.
They're how long have you and I known
Yeah,
each other? It's the
right.
same situation, 25, 30 years. You tend to get to know the senior executives at a lot of these firms.
Yeah. Very true.
On a personal level.
Yeah, because the reason why I asked that is because I hear so many people telling me about off-market deals,
Yeah.
right? So it's almost like you have to be plugged into a whole sort of purchasing subculture, right?
Well, I'd say about half the transactions we've completed in the last, call it 12 months, have been off-market transactions.
And that all just comes from people that you know based on these relationships that you have.
It's an investor coming to us saying, "Hey, I'm interested in buying this type of hotel in this type of market. Can you help me find something?" And then we pick up the phone and call our relationships in the business and see if they have an interest in selling. Or it might be a situation. This morning I had a conversation with an owner of a hotel who basically said, "I don't want to put my property on the market. I don't want to create any disruption in the operation. We're humming along. We're doing very well. I don't want the staff distracted. Could you help us talk to a dozen people very quietly, very discreetly? We don't even want the property to know what's going on. So I'd say it's about 50-50. We're about to close the transaction at the end of this month. No one on the property staff knows the property is being sold. The owner knows. The director of operations for the management company knows. But that's it.
Right.
It should be seamless at the end of the day, but we really don't want to disrupt.
Right, because once the word gets out, then everybody's going to start to freak out and won't be as focused on their jobs, as you were saying.
In particular, you have salespeople who would be concerned about their future.
Right.
You have, if it gets out into the meeting planning community, do I really want to
book something
a meeting?
there?
If there's going to be a change of ownership, and so we don't want to disrupt stuff.
Right. All right. So, do you have to have a lot of money to get involved in the hotel business? How can I get involved? I got to put some kids through college soon, and I would love to get involved in the investment thing. So, as someone like me who probably doesn't have the means of some of your high net worth individuals, would you recommend a good strategy in order to start being able to play in it? Like, do I need to become friends with someone to get a sliver of a sliver of a sliver of something here?
It's funny. Last night at dinner, I was having a conversation with an owner of a hotel, of several hotels, and he was bemoaning the fact that there is just this tremendous proliferation of brands, and the brands are also putting a lot of constraints and pressure on hotel owners to renovate their hotels, or fees are increasing, or corporate charges are increasing. And his interesting thesis was, maybe I shouldn't invest in hotels anymore. I should just go buy stock in Hilton, Hyatt, Marriott, Wyndham, because their stocks are all doing so dang well. So maybe, Glenn, the smart thing is not to invest in hard assets, but to invest in the operators that are managing these.
Very good. That's very good advice, and that's my ulterior motive for getting you here on the show, so I can get some free advice from you. All right, great. That's terrific. Anything else that you want to add?
No, I think we've covered it. It's always a pleasure.
Lou, how can people reach out to you? How can people find you? All of that kind of good stuff.
Easiest way is obviously our website. It's www.tpghotels.com, or contact our VP of Marketing, Jody Orozco, 813-932-1234.
Beautiful. I want to thank you for being here today, Lou.
Thank you, Glenn. Thanks for the
great.
opportunity.
Yeah, this is really great. I always have fun learning about these kinds of things and bringing you types of interviews that are a little bit different.
Well, thanks for what you're doing, because it really is fun.
Thanks. Man, I love doing this thing. It is just so much fun getting to talk to guys like you and all of these, to learn so much from all of these folks that are out there. And I think we're building a great database of educational information. So for all of you listening, go back and check our catalog of all these great shows that we've done with amazing folks just like Lou Plasencia here. So for Glenn Hausman and Lou Plasencia, we'll see you next time.
Have a question for your host, Glenn? Tweet him now at Traveling Glenn. No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast. We'll be right back.
Hey everybody, Glenn here. So listen, the extended stay market accounts for 8.6% of the U.S. lodging supply, and it's been growing steadily since 2013. That explains why Red Roof has entered this market with their Hometown Studios by Red Roof product last year. Well, listen, this year at AHOA, Red Roof unveiled the first prototype of the new build concept for Hometown Studios. So, from the company that obsessively listens to their guests comes a brand new design based on consumers' #1 request: more functional storage in the bedroom and bath, but not at the expense of good design. As Red Roof's Chief Development Officer Phil Yu told me, Hometown Studios is all about aesthetically pleasing properties underpinned by cost-effective construction and economically sourced materials that allow us to deliver modern functional hotels that exceed guest expectations for an extended stay property. Listen to that whole interview. You can find it on Facebook. You can find it at novacancynews.com. But it's a topic that is so important, and you really should be focused on Hometown sound studios. What's more, for hoteliers looking to reposition, the new designs can be adapted to enhance existing hotels. And franchisees get Red Roof's significant brand awareness, their seasoned management team, and Ready Rewards, a richest in-class loyalty program with nearly 3 million members. And that just happens to be the least expensive program for owners. Plus, if you ask Red Roof's franchisees, they'll tell you genuine relationships, real results. It isn't just some slogan, it's how Red Roof does business. Get in on the new way to extended stay and visit redrooffranchising.com or call them at 888-473-8861.
Back to the show. It's No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast with your host, Glenn Hausman.
Hey, welcome back to the No Vacancy Podcast with me, your host, Glenn Hausman. All right, so today I'm recording, and we're at the NYU Hospitality Investment Conference. Now, I'm not sure when you're going to be listening to this, but if you notice a change in my voice, it's because everybody's telling me, keep it down. I talk too loud, apparently. Now I'm with Sean Hehir, Managing Director of Trinity Investments. And Sean, I don't talk too loud, do I? No,
sounds good to me.
All right, thank you. It's 'cause I'm actually trying to keep it quiet, but I am such a freaking loudmouth. It's unbelievable. I swear, I wouldn't even need a microphone if not for having to record these kinds of things. I'm sure the listeners in California can hear me right now from New York. So, Sean, I got to say, great time to be in the investment side of the business.
It is. It's definitely a very interesting time. You know, we track several markets, a couple of international markets as well. We're headquartered in Honolulu, so we have a different perspective. Mm-hmm. We're busy opening an office in LA. So we invest on the East Coast, West Coast, Mexico, Japan. So we're seeing, and obviously our home state of Hawaii. So we see a lot of things.
Yeah. So this is unbelievable to me. This is the second interview today I've done with a company based in Honolulu. I just did one with Jeff Wagner of Outrigger, and this is not doing any good for me because I just want to move to Hawaii at this point.
Well, Outrigger is a great company, and KSL is doing wonderful things with them.
Yeah, but I want to know about what you guys are doing. You have a property on Oahu, is it, or is it Maui?
Maui. So,
right.
So the firm was started in Honolulu 24 years ago.
The Westin Maui Resort at Kaanapali.
Yeah, correct.
Anapoli. Sorry.
Kaanapali.
Kaanapali.
Yeah, exactly.
I got to get my Hawaiian back. All right. I used to be better at it.
No, not a problem. Actually, in Hawaiian, you pronounce every vowel and every syllable. So
yes.
And it's very hard
which I love. What was that song? Maha Kaniki Laka.
Makahiki.
Velokiliki
Maka.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Yes, that's correct. We do own the Westin Maui. We bought that in partnership with Oaktree a little over 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. It's about 770 rooms. It was owned by Starwood Hotels, so through the merger with Marriott, they put it on the market. And we purchased it with Oaktree. It's busy undergoing a $100 million plus renovation right now. It's right in the heart of Kaanapali, right on the beach, right next door to Whalers Village. And our goal is when it comes out of the renovation that it'll be one of the top resorts on Maui.
So tell me a little bit about, or not me, or our listeners, tell me a little bit about Trinity Investments, what your point of view is, what you do. I'd like to really orient our listeners so they can have better meaning out of this conversation.
Sure. So Trinity was started 24 years ago by 3 original partners based out of Honolulu. And the initial business plan was to buy distressed debt from Japanese banks on real estate in Hawaii, go through friendly deed and liens and foreclosure, end up owning the real estate.
So to give a little bit of context to that, the Japanese started to buy a lot of stuff in the 1980s in the
Correct.
United States, Hawaii included. In Japan, Japanese people love coming to Hawaii as well. It's very convenient and easy. But then the economics kind of shifted, and they started to get out of a lot of the investments that they had, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And their so-called bubble burst
Yeah.
at the end of the 80s,
Right.
and there's a lot of distress. So we started buying a lot of real estate in partnership with Apollo Real Estate Advisors at the time. What happened was the same Japanese banks invited us to Tokyo in 1998, which is when I joined the firm, and we started buying commercial real estate in Japan. So Trinity's gone through a lot of changes over the years. The original founding partners have since retired. We changed the partnership structure over the last few years. So today the company is run by myself and a gentleman by the name of Lee Neibart, who came out of Ares Management, Steve Haggerty, who was former global head of real estate for Hyatt, Greg Dickens, who's been a friend and a longtime partner
That's
at
great.
Cerberus.
Yeah.
And then Ryan Don, who he and I have worked together for 17 plus years. So our focus today, remaining headquartered in Honolulu, is to invest mainly it's predominantly in hospitality. So we'll invest in any type of real estate that makes sense in Hawaii. We're continuing to review many opportunities there. We're continuing to invest in Japan. We're busy raising a fund with Citigroup in Japan in partnership with Marubeni to invest in and develop select service hotels in that market. And we continue to be a great operating partner to groups such as Elliott Management, Oaktree, Ares, and numerous other private equity firms in the U.S. on resort assets in the U.S., big convention resort-type hotels. And then we find Mexico to be a very interesting market. So we bought a Hilton in Los Cabos in partnership with Walton Street last year.
Yep.
And we're busy acquiring several more hotels in Cabo and in other markets within Mexico at the moment.
Fascinating. I'd love to break down and start to talk about each of these individual markets. But before we do that, as we're recording this in June 2019, how is the overall state of the hospitality investment community?
It depends as you go market by market, right?
Of course.
And
thank you for saying that,
yeah.
because a lot of times, and especially at this event that we're at right now, the NYU Hospitality Conference, we have a tendency to just talk about everything in aggregate when really it's a street corner business.
Correct. So what we like in the U.S., continental U.S., that is, are these big resort convention type hotels. The barriers to entry are very high, meaning they're very hard to develop, very hard to get approvals, very hard to finance them. They're for the most part institutionally owned, so we see a lot of upside in terms of aggressive asset management. We work well with the brands. So there's no new supply in that space, and we see a lot of opportunity. The common question is, where are we in the cycle?
Yeah, I hate that question.
And I don't know, it's the 7th or the 9th inning. I have no idea.
I think that's a load of bunk.
Yeah.
Because, again, that goes back to saying that everything is the same. And it's not. Every deal is different. Opportunities are different everywhere. Correct. And I think that if we put ourselves in the mindset of wondering where we are in the cycle, it takes away from being smart about your everyday philosophy on how to operate the business as profitable as possible.
Correct. And so we believe that we, have to buy right.
Right.
And we have to have the right business plan in place. We have to be modest and not aggressive on leverage levels. So that's what we see in the U.S. We wouldn't be doing select service in the U.S. right now. We find that space to be a little bit overcrowded.
Right.
As it relates to Mexico and what we do in Mexico, there the barriers to entry are different. The barriers to entry are having the right local partner. Our partner there is spectacular, world-class. So we feel very safe investing in that country.
I'd like to know why you feel safe investing in that country, because if you were to look at the news, right?
Yeah.
People are scared in Mexico because there's crimes going on, and now we're having all sorts of political issues with Mexico. So on first blush, it might seem as if it's not a good investment. So tell me why that point of view is completely wrong.
Well, anything that you see in the news is not targeted towards travelers or visitors to Mexico. A lot of it is drug on drug or drug wars.
And that's much farther south than Los Cabos or any of the places that you are.
Correct. The other thing I'll say is that the Mexican government is very quick to react to rectify situations. So when we were getting ready to close on the Hilton in Cabo, there was a situation in Cabo where there were warring drug cartels. Very quickly, the government set up a Marine base. They took the situation under control. But no tourists were ever harmed in any of these issues. And people who travel to these markets understand that. So we've continued to see development in these Mexican resort markets. We've seen continued airlift growth. We've seen the markets become more and more institutionalized, with both institutional lenders and investors coming into them. The brands are very busy down there, growing their portfolios. So we don't see the crime as an issue there. Obviously, when the country gets put on a watch list, that's an issue, but it all passes. And if you're looking for a beach vacation within a 2 to 3 hour flying distance of the main feeder markets, that's where you're going.
Yes, I gotta agree with you, Sean. And I think the government has done a phenomenal job at making sure that the resort regions are safe for travelers, right?
Correct.
So no matter what you hear in the news,